I actually meant to open that before the stream. It just took me way longer than I thought. Anyway, hello again. I was not sure if I would be streaming again the day after my last stream, but yeah, we're back. I like to call it avoiding despair by spinning. If you want the technical term for it, is that. The last stream, first off, we finished spinning all of the poonies, which was, I think, like 10. And we got this done flying. So that's actually so much farther than I thought it would be. Like I was fully expecting 3 poonies and then I put it down. So yeah, happily not the case. We're gonna see if we can finish it all up. I'd be a little surprised if that's possible, but you never know. We're gonna do as much of it as we can, and if nothing else, I'm really, really curious about the yardage. I really want to know. I'm hoping we get about 500 yards from all of this, because that means I'd only have to do this one more time, and then we'd have enough to make a blanket. Because my last ones only took about 1,000 yards as well. So, actually, I meant to look at this first. Hang on. Yeah, so if nothing else, we will certainly know how much this bobbin has and be able to extrapolate, I think, but I'd really like to finish it all if possible. But yeah, I really want to know. So yeah. Hello again. As an update on the cactus that I was talking about in yesterday's stream, I think he's sadly a goner because I went to check him when I got home from work today, and he is mushy. As far as I know, cacti are not supposed to be mushy under really any circumstances. So yeah, unfortunately, my coworkers killed my cactus by watering him way too much and not telling me. Like if one of them had just told me, like, "Hey, I've been watering your cactus, by the way," I would have at least been able to try and rescue it sooner. No, yeah, just did that. I don't know which one it was. I don't really think it matters, to be honest. But it's certainly frustrating. My other plants at work are still alive. So at least there's that. They didn't magically die overnight, which I was somewhat convinced they would. Not going to talk about it because I will end up just ranting. But it was a bummer, to put it mildly. And then I got some bummer medical news as well. So we are drinking, and we are going until the pressure injury gets worse, I guess. Yeah, because whatever. Yeah, and also, really, what we're actually going is until I run out of stuff to spin. If I last that long, that's the actual end goal. It's much more relevant here. There's so much VM, by the way. I felt like I was picking out tons of VM as I spun this stuff. Too much. I felt like I was spending an inordinate amount of time picking out VM, and it was getting to be ridiculous. But like now that I'm flying it, I'm like I could have stood to pick out more VM because this is terrible. This is far too much. That said, though, like I don't actually think I'll notice it. You know, I'm gonna grab something for back support. It's like sitting right next to me, just slightly out of reach. Right back. Give me a second. may or may not ditch this immediately, but I'll try it anyway. Anyway, so the other cotton, or the other hand-spun summer blanket that I've made is a linen, thick spun linen blanket. I've talked about it quite a few times. And I didn't pull out any of the trash in that. Like, I already had my hands full just trying to spin it. I didn't do any debris removal whatsoever. And if you run your hand over it, it's not necessarily, like, some of it's still in there. Some of it has come out in the wash, but some of it's still in there. And it's, you notice it. But when you're actually using the blanket as intended, you don't notice at all. So I'm hoping this will be a similar situation of, one, a lot of it will come out anyway, and two, whatever doesn't come out will not be felt. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I really don't know. Like, it would be a little foolish to assume that cotton is going to behave exactly the same way as linen does, because we already know it doesn't actually the same way. But based off of that blanket, I have hope that the VM really won't matter. I think if I were making something to wear, it would be quite different, but for one thing, this isn't, like, it's going to be on my skin, but there's a difference between a blanket and a sweater, in terms of how soft it can be, or how rough it can be, rather, before it starts being uncomfortable. At least for me, possibly not for everybody, but for me, that's certainly the case. And additionally, the way that I intend to knit this, those big needles, with all the big open gaps, means that very little of the surface of it is actually touching my skin at any given moment, compared to if I were to do, like, I don't know, a cable blanket or a stockinette blanket or whatever that's in normal sized needles that would create, like a denser fabric. Yeah, I think that is quite a big difference as well. So I'm hoping that between these two factors, we'll be good. But I don't know. I'm curious. I think no matter what, I can always put a different blanket underneath and then put this one on top. So no matter what, I'm sure I will use it. But I do hope it's comfortable. That's always the hope when you're making things, that it's comfortable. I think we're gonna not necessarily jam pack this problem, because I didn't jam pack any of the singles. So if I did that, I'd end up with, I think, 2 big skeins and then 1 really small skein. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive, but I think that's what it is. So we're gonna just sort of. I actually didn't mean to make that this last one. I didn't mean to make it quite so big. The other ones is definitely going to be not quite as big. I can't tell if the stack support is terrible or helping. It's hard to say. And the other thing is, I can see that we certainly don't have even amounts of singles left on each bobbin. I mean, it's impossible to tell with guy, because obviously I split that into 2, so it's not really representative of much of anything, because I've got the other one right here. But I can see from the other 2, they're certainly not even, so I'm sure we'll have no small amount of chain plying at the end, which is okay. If we're lucky, we'll be able to self-ply. Like, if I run out of 1 bobbin, I can self-ply the longer one and then hold it alongside the shorter one. And if I don't, then I'm sure we'll still be fine if I chain ply it. I'm actually kind of curious if I'll ever be able to tell the difference between the chain plied spots and the traditional 3-ply spots. I'm going to take the occasional drinking break, of course. Otherwise, I will not get drunk. Now, one thing I'm noticing a lot is that it keeps jumping the hook. Like, it stays on the very last hook. I'll show it again the next time I stop to change hooks. It stays on the very last one, the guiding one, which is good because that's the most important. But it falls off all the other ones, and that does affect quite a lot of things, actually, just in a subtle way. It makes it a little bit more difficult to treadle. It makes it not wind on as much. So I have to, I don't know how much you can tell, but I'm actually just feeding the yarn in. It's not going to pull itself in. So I'm not going to do that. Of course, this time it actually is as it ought to be. There we go. But all the other times, it's been more like this. And you can see another thing is that it's rubbing against the lip of the bobbin. So basically, it's just creating all this extra friction that we don't want. I don't know why I did it this time, or why I didn't do it this time. Maybe because I was being a little bit more careful. Drinking break, hang on. But yeah, I was being more careful. Maybe that's it. Maybe the shorter distance makes it less. Oh, didn't even change hooks. Makes it less liable to do that. Let's see. I won't be as careful with the next one and see what happens. I think if I feed it in aggressively and it does that whole almost whip-like jump rope movement, I don't know how to describe it, but I think you can see it if you watch closely. Let's see if I can. Yeah, see that? So that was me feeding it in faster than it could actually wrap around. Yeah, there we go. Done it a couple times now. I was me feeding it in faster than it could wrap around the wool. And it does slowly correct itself over the course of a second or two. But I think that motion sort of pulls it off, and then it pulls it off all of the remaining hooks, not the guide one, but all the ones behind it. Yeah, look at that. This one you can see actually came off all by itself. I did just notice that there's a little sticky out bit here because one of the plies kind of looped in on itself. So let me just fix that. That always bothers me so much when I encounter it, when I'm either just feeling the textile or knitting it up. It really bugs me, so I always fix it when I see it. But yeah, I think it's like feeding it in a little too aggressively, maybe. But it's not something that I really encountered with wool yarns. I did encounter it quite a lot when I was plying the linen for that winter. So that makes me think that maybe it's something to do with elasticity. Cotton has a little bit of elasticity, linen has none. And so I think it's entirely possible. Did I actually move it to a different? Okay, I think it's entirely possible that the lack of elasticity sort of causes it to do odd things, I suppose. I think that's what's going on here. And that's fine. I do wonder if there's any way to mitigate it, because it's kind of like it's not ideal. I suppose I could just be really careful, and that would be a way to mitigate it for sure. But other than being really careful, I wonder if there's a particular type of spinning wheel that mitigates such a thing. I imagine that if it was wrapping around fast enough, it wouldn't do this. Like if I was either treadling fast enough to, you know, make it go real fast, or if I had a really high ratio, much higher than I can achieve on my wheel, I think it might not jump the hook. But I'm not sure. So that makes me think that maybe a flax production wheel, like you very occasionally see, which has an incredibly high ratio compared to my wheel and most standard modern wheels. Maybe that would fix the issue. With cotton, it actually isn't really disruptive. I don't think it's a good thing for the reasons I mentioned. That it causes that extra friction, and that's just more wear and tear on the wheel and on me. So I certainly don't want that to happen. But it doesn't cause problems. But what did cause problems was the linen when I was working with it. It would jump all of the hooks and then tangle in an instant, and it was really, really frustrating. And one of the many things about that project that was pretty infuriating, to be honest. So I would be interested in seeing if there's a way around it with flax for that reason. I do wonder if part of the reason that it did that with the flax too is because it was thick spun, just like this is thick spun. At some point, I would really like to spin some thin flax again. I haven't in a while, but I've been working with my thin flax, and it's such a beautiful yarn, and it's so useful too for like cords and stuff like that. So I would love to do more of that if I could, and I'm really curious if it's going to have the jump the hook issue again. But anyway, look at that. We did it. Not only did we learn how to card cotton in a way that made it spinnable, and then learn how to spin cotton in a way that resulted in what I actually wanted, but then we also applied it, and we're there. I mean, there's going to be presumably 2 more batches, but yeah, this first batch, that's special. Let's see if I can. I know the whole potato camera issue always comes into play, but I think it's really beautiful. It's really soft. This section isn't particularly uneven. I'm actually really happy with it. So we are going to put it on the Nitty Naughty because I want to know right now how much what the yardage is. I do have to drink though, so 1 second. I just watched a truck that looked incredibly like a banana go by. I have the curtains down, but I can still see through them because they're quite opaque. And it was just a massive, long, skinny truck that was banana yellow that was also like designed in a way that gave it a sort of banana-ish shape. It was really quite charming. Yeah, I love that. Okay. I'm going to push this away slightly. Now, we will not get the exact yardage doing this. Let me add a little more twist because this got slightly untwisted. Yeah, we won't get the exact yardage doing this. The reason why is because it shrinks pretty significantly. The amount that any yarn is going to shrink between the Nitty Naughty and washing depends on the fiber. With this ginned cotton, it shrinks a ton, and it puffs up a ton as well. So the thickness that we get is not it's not the thickness that you'll see when it's actually finished. So yeah, we basically, if I get say 100 yards, we'll know it's probably more like 90. It's certainly not actually 100 once it's washed. The only way that I could tell the real yardage, like an accurate yardage, after it's been washed, is if I were to put it back on the nitty naughty and measure it then, and then I would get a much more accurate yardage. It would probably be very slightly distorted because when you're, like, you might notice, I don't know how much you can see, but you might notice that I'm tensioning it pretty hard. I'm not pulling on it, but I do have my thumb and my forefinger fairly tight. The purpose of that is because just you'll get a hell of a lot less tangles if you actually tension it when you wrap it on. Whereas if you're really loose about it, tangles city. And I hate tangles in the hank when I'm trying to turn it into a nice ball of yarn. So yeah, I always tension it pretty strong. And that will always distort the yarn a little bit. It'll stretch it out just a tiny bit. So even a washed and blocked yarn that has already shrunk, if you tension it hard when you're putting it on the nitty naughty, it'll still distort it a tiny bit. It'll still be a little higher on the books than it is in reality. I don't think that most of those things matter, to be honest, because when it comes to yardage, when you're working with a pattern, everybody is going to get a slightly different amount. Like if you look at test knits, say the hat uses 100 yards of bulky weight, everybody has a different amount left over. And that might be, because they actually made decisions when making that hat to change the yardage, such as doing less of a brim or using some of it for, what are they called? For a pom-pom at the top. Like, certainly stylistic choices play into it, but also your gauge plays into it. How long of a tail you leave plays into it. How tight your ribbing is. Like, all these things affect it. And so I think knowing the exact yardage is maybe not quite as helpful as one would hope, because people will certainly buy the exact yardage of yarn that a pattern says they need, and then, they start knitting with it and they run out. So that, like, the fact that there are so many different things that affect it means I don't think it really matters, except when it comes to selling it, because you do want to give an accurate account of what you're selling, so that the seller isn't being, or so that the buyer isn't being ripped off. 100%. That's the only difference, though. Like, that's the only time in which I actually take the effort to count all this stuff twice. Or usually I'll just count it once, really. I don't count it when I put it on the nitty naughty the first time, just the second time. But yeah, when it comes to my own use, I don't, like, it's not that I need a certain yardage. It's that I know my last one was about 1,000 yards. And I know that if I get 1,000 yards on this, I'll probably have enough for a blanket. But either way, the blanket ends when I run out of yarn. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about what the yardage is when I count it this time versus what it'll actually be once it's washed. I know it'll be less, so what we're actually aiming for is probably going to be more like 1,200 yards. And that will certainly be enough to account for any differences, and probably a little bit extra on there just for luck. I don't think this is 100 yards. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think it's even 100 yards. Gosh, but we'll see. I haven't counted it yet. I'm sure it'll be a fascinating minute or two of waiting while I do. Take a drink at least first. All right. Moment of truth. Well, minute of truth, probably. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Let's see if we can put it so the camera can see it. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48. Yeah, so that's 96 yards, not accounting for shrinkage. So probably more like 85 minimum or 85 maximum. So we're definitely gonna have to do this multiple times to get a full-size blanket. Is what I'm getting from this. Not just one more time, but probably 3 more times. And that does make me sad because I was really looking forward to only doing this one more time. Not because I don't like it, because there's other projects I want to do, you know. But you know, nonetheless, it's a beautiful yarn. Hey, there we go. That's the shot. Yeah. Is it the most consistent yarn in the world? Certainly not. Absolutely not. But I can't spin anything consistently. So for cotton, for me, this is really good. If it were wool, I'd still be happy with it, but it's fucking cotton, which I've struggled to spin for several years. And I actually did it, so I'm very proud. Just on that basis, even though it's not the yardage I wanted, I think it's a lot more even than I gave myself credit for. There are certainly thin and thick spots, but yeah, I'm so happy. It's a really beautiful yarn. It feels really nice and soft. There is VM. We'll see how much of a problem it is, like we discussed. But, yeah, I'm happy. I can't wait to scour it, and I think I might try dyeing it, possibly tonight. Oh wait, no, I can't do it tonight because I haven't scoured it yet. Okay, well, I'll scour it, and then I guess I'll probably mordant it with alum or oak gall, one of the two. And then I noticed that the Oregon grapes around here are starting to ripen, and I actually picked some on my, I think it was on my first break at work, because there's just a ton around my work. And I also picked some St. John's wort flowers. It's not the St. John's wort that is used medicinally. It is a close relative that's native to North America, I think. Medicinal St. John's wort is not, and I'm pretty sure the one that I have in droves is. And yeah, so I picked some of that too. I have no idea whatsoever if that one yields color. It's sort of iffy on whether or not even medicinal St. John's wort yields color. There's major questions on that. When I was looking into it, I didn't see a single mention whatsoever of my plant, only of medicinal St. John's wort. And so due to that, I have a feeling, it might not yield any color, but I would really like to try. And I picked some of the flowers, so at this point I'm kind of committed. Also took some incredible pictures of a very fat little bumblebee. Basically impossible to go wrong with a fat little bumblebee. I meant to post those while I was at work. I forgot, but I'll see if I remember to do it later. But yeah, anyway, we'll probably try to get going at dyeing it. Just see how it looks. I do not want all the skeins to be the same color if I can at all help it. If they all end up white, okay, fine. And oh, Chuck, you want to be up there? Don't you? She does. Okay, hang on. For the sake of Chuck, I'll be right back. I'll lower this so I don't dox myself. So there's that. I honestly can't tell if this supposed back support is in fact. I think I am going to remove it. Oh, Chuck. Yeah, I took the box off that chair. Okay, you can sit there. Hey, no. It's like rolling my bobbins by rubbing against them. Not cool, dude. Precision. Precision technology check. She's doing it. No respect at all. Anyway, so yeah, I think we're gonna apply all of this if we can, and if we can't, then we'll apply as much of it as we can. Okay. Sorry, I frequently use my mouth as a third hand because you kind of want three hands an awful lot when you're tying yarn on, or at least I certainly do. So if I go quiet and I don't have any yarn attached, that's probably what's going on. Okay. All right. Now this time I'm going to try being careful and see how much it jumps. We've already established that not being careful certainly makes it jump a lot. But does it still jump when I am careful? That's the big question. Another thing that I hoped I wouldn't have problems with, simply because all of this stuff rested. So theoretically speaking, the kink should have rested themselves out. Is that I'm getting all these little snarls. I don't think you can actually see it, to be honest, but I am getting them a lot. Maybe I'll try. Yeah, and then each time I do, I kind of have to go through and pull it out because I really don't want these snarls in my finished yarn. I guess this is sort of the purpose of a tensioned lazy cape, right? This is exactly what it's there for. I don't think it's usually used for cotton necessarily, but for really high twist wool, it definitely has a use. Gosh, this is painful. Okay. Which one of you? That one. Yeah. It's a different one each time. So it's got nothing to do with how much it's rested, because one of these is rested longest and one of them is rested not so much at all, actually. So I guess it's got nothing to do with that, and that just is what cotton wants to do. It wouldn't shock me, to be honest. I can't believe I was trying to spin and I didn't even have the brake band on. I feel like I do that almost every single time. When I restart, I forget I took it off. Still not enough. What is wrong? Nope. Why are you doing this? This is actually getting quite annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Okay. God, hopefully that one will stay. Yeah, it is too much tension, but we're good. I do think that if I was able to increase the take up, the rate at which it is spread onto the bottom would be increased as well. It's not just to do with ratio, the treadling speed, it's also to do with the take up. And yeah, the problem is though is that higher take up means more friction, which means harder on my wheel. Or no, harder on my knee. My wheel's fine, my knee's not fine. So that's why. Oh, hey, Zertra. You almost missed my post, but I'm glad you didn't. Welcome in. It's nice to see you again. It's been quite a while since I've streamed. I did stream yesterday, but other than that, it's been a while. We just finished the very first scheme. Hang on, I want to show it off again. Haha, first scheme. And it's really, I love it. It's really beautiful. There's so little of it, which is a little bit gutting because I was clearly quite unrealistically hoping for 500 yards. This is not going to be that. This was 96 yards. So if I get 3 of those, we're still not at 500, but it's so good. It's such a beautiful yarn, and it's so soft, and it's fairly even for me, even if it was wool. So I'm really happy with it. So yeah, we're working on the second one now. It's huge. It is huge, yeah. Yeah, you did miss yesterday's stream. It wasn't super eventful. We did have some nice people on chatting. But yeah, all we did was finish spinning up those boonies and then get partway through for the very first scheme, not all the way through. So I only just finished that up now. And yeah, so we're going to see if we can play the rest of it for the end of the stream. That's the ideal. I'm not sure, but I think it's possible. And I'm also hoping that we magically get like 4 schemes out of this instead of 3. Because then I'd be closer to 500, and I need 1,000-ish to make the size blanket that I want. So yeah, I'm hoping I only have to do this over and over like 2 more times at most. I don't necessarily want to be spinning cotton forever and ever, right? I do enjoy it quite a lot, but I also enjoy spinning other things quite a lot. I like to mix it up. Either way, you know, I'm very happy that we got that done. And I feel like if I can keep spinning, I see myself spinning a lot more cotton now that I know how, you know. And now that I know that I can get a really nice yarn out of it. Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm gonna dye it. I'm gonna start dyeing it tonight. That first scheme. I might instead actually dye a test skein and see how it wears. Now that I think about it, maybe I don't want to potentially risk that entire beautiful first skein. I do have a few little bits and bobs left from all of the washcloths that I made. I have some of that left. I guess I could always try it out on that and then do some abrasion tests. That's probably the smart way to go, now that I think about it. Not the fun way, but it is the smart way. So, yeah, but we'll see. I don't think that it's going to disintegrate as long as I don't use any iron. But I don't know, you know? Don't know for sure. Do I know how I'll dye it? Yeah, with a mixture of everything I find. I know that I am going to use some Oregon grape berries because they're currently ripening and they're everywhere, and I can actually pick them at work on my breaks. So that gives me something to do that is not sit inside the building, but also like I kind of stopped going outside on my breaks and my lunch because it made me want to smoke, and I quit smoking. And I pretty much mostly smoked at work. So yeah, I've been avoiding going outside because I don't want to get the urge and then relapse. But this gives me a very good reason to go outside, and you cannot go to the corner store and smoke if you're currently fighting with an incredibly prickly bush. So it's actually very effective at not allowing me to smoke while still getting some nice bedtime. So yeah, definitely Oregon grapes. And then we're gonna see if it's possible to dye using this St. John's wort that is also all around my work. I was talking about it earlier. It's not the kind of St. John's wort that we use medicinally. It is a close relative, and I have no idea whatsoever if it can be used to dye things, but it looks promising. And I'm always down to give something that has absolutely no mentions of natural dye when you Google it. Always willing to give that a thought anyway. And then I have a bunch of avocado peels left and bits left that I could potentially try. Um, I've got lots and lots of yellow onion skin and red onion skin. And also there's, what are they called? Buckthorn berries. There we go. There's buckthorn berries that I think are probably getting ripe. Possibly they already are ripe, actually. I gotta go check on that this weekend. But there's some of those around my apartment that I want to pick. So, yeah, just off the top of my head, there's quite a few that are ready to forage right now. It's a good time to be doing dyeing. Yeah, we'll see. But that's kind of why I want to do all this dyeing right now. Is like I didn't necessarily think the way that the timeline would work out. I'd finish this scheme by when all of these natural dyeing materials start to be ready. But I did, so I kind of want to take advantage of it, you know. There should be foraging breaks at work next to smoke breaks. Yeah. I mean, I think a couple months ago I would have liked both. But foraging breaks are so much more productive, right? They do make people look at you a hell of a lot weirder. For some reason, giving yourself cancer is much more normalized than picking berries off a bush, which I'm sure says many terrible things about today's society. But also, nobody around here knows that Oregon grapes are edible. Like, almost every time I'm picking them, somebody is like, those are poisonous, right? And I'm like, well, actually, one, I'm not eating them, and two, they literally are not. They're actually completely edible. And I don't know where you got the idea that they're poisonous, but you're wrong. And then they argue with me, and then they leave. So yeah, I don't know why everybody thinks they're poisonous. They probably don't taste very good. I haven't ever tried them because I'm allergic to fruit, so they actually are poisonous to me. But the general population, not so much. I think I've heard that they're very sour and slightly astringent, and best made into jams and other such things that involve adding a ton of sugar to it. Hang on, drink break. But yeah, many dyeing materials. It just feels so odd to me to go even like a year without picking berries. I grew up picking berries like multiple times a year. Like the blackberries, definitely every single year we would go pick blackberries, and they were just everywhere where I grew up. Many memories of that. But we usually pick lots of different kinds of berries throughout the year, so it feels weird to go any decent stretch of time without picking berries. I would not do it willingly. I don't know if there's any Oregon grape berries anywhere other than North America. I have no idea what their range is, but they're a very interesting plant, and there's multiple different varieties. There were actually some of a different variety that were ripening like in the spring, whereas these ones ripen in the summer. And I only saw like one little area of them, and it was right in front of a restaurant, and they were clearly being used decoratively. Because that particular variety is really pretty. And especially the berries are really pretty, so I kind of felt like I couldn't really pick them because the restaurant was clearly maintaining them and using them as decor. And it was also like right in plain view of the restaurant entrance, so even if my morals were okay with it, I think I would have gotten caught. So I've had to resist picking those berries, and my desire to pick these berries has grown ever stronger as is often the case with me. I really hope I'm adding a good amount of twist here. I know that it's gonna untwist a little when I knit it, but I'm not sure how much. So I'm adding extra to compensate for it, but I don't know if I'm adding enough. We'll have to see. If nothing else, I'm sure it'll still work. Might not last quite as long, but it will still work. I haven't applied such a large amount in a while. I'm realizing it can be really soothing to apply a huge amount of yarn because it's like it's just the same motion over and over the way spinning is, but at least for me, plying takes so much less space in my brain, so much less effort than spinning does. And so this is like all the things I love about spinning, but also a bit more relaxing. It can get tedious, in my opinion, when there's too much of it, and especially if it's something that I'm not super excited about. I don't necessarily enjoy it very much. But also, it's not that often that I spin things I'm not excited about. Initially, yes, I was spinning a lot of things for practice and spinning things that I kind of hated, but felt like I needed to finish just because I didn't want to waste the materials and I didn't want to waste my effort and time either. So I have in the past applied a lot of things I wasn't happy with, but not for a while. And this I'm really happy with, so it certainly is not a chore. It's quite enjoyable. I worry a little bit about the general bumpiness and lumpiness. I don't know how much of that is going to sort of pull off as, what's the word? Like pills? There we go. I don't know how much of it is going to pill off. I don't know how much of it I'm going to pull off. Or how much will come off on the wash, but that does leaves gaps in the yarn, and then those gaps will cause the rest of the yarn to sort of deteriorate a lot faster. I've noticed it before. So I'm a little bit worried about the fact that it's so slubby and thick and thin, but I think either way it'll work. Plying flows easy. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It does flow easy. Especially once you know what you're doing, it just feels like a very easy, natural set of movements, at least for me. It's really nice to, usually when I'm plying, I'll like smooth down the entire surface of the yarn. Why? I guess it just feels like it helps. I have no idea if it does or not. I always do that, and it's nice to be able to, like, I'm checking every single length of yarn with my hands, but also it's kind of interesting. Like when you spin a singles, you've touched every single inch of that, like all of it, and then when you ply it, you touch all of it again. And so by the time that you've got applied yarn, like you've touched every single fiber in there multiple times to get it in the exact order and arrangement with the exact amount of twist that you want. And it's just such a tactile thing. I love that so much about spinning. It's so incredibly tactile. There's not a lot of other tactile pursuits that I actually enjoy. But spinning, oh yeah, favorite one. Easily the favorite one. Now, unfortunately, the wool interlude is gonna have to wait until my pressure injuries are not as bad, because I actually can't do it right now. In a twist of fate, I'm more able to do this than I am to lay in bed with my e-spinner, because I have to lay in bed on my back, and that's where my pressure injuries are. So yeah, that's gonna have to wait. Not quite sure if I'll come up with something to stream in the meantime. I do want a bit of a break from talking. I want to spin something else. I just don't know if I'll do it on my wheel, or if I'll do it on stream. I'm not sure. But if I can wrestle something up, I definitely will. I have not felt great coming home from work this week, and it improved massively when I was done with yesterday's stream. And it's definitely also improved massively at the moment from this stream. So I would like to keep doing it, at least for the rest of this terrible week. But I don't know if I can come up with something to spin. I did actually put together a couple of roll eggs to do on the e-spinner. I don't know if I can do it on my wheel. The tension that my wheel has might be a little bit too high, but it might work. I'm not sure. I don't know. I went to go straighten out a piece and it just pulled apart instead. Wasn't really expecting that. I hope that doesn't mean the plies are really weak. Like I know that it's probably snappable with my hands because cotton is the staples are just too short for it not to do that. Kind of no matter what you've done. But I hope that it at least has some abrasion resistance. I might end up having to wash it just by itself every time and be kind of careful with it, which wouldn't be the end of the world, to be fair. A beautiful way of seeing it. I know, right? I like to think about it a lot just because it makes me happy, like, as a part of spinning. You wish me the ability to spin through the week. Thanks. Me too. Hopefully. Fingers crossed anyway. But yeah, I did make those up. I could probably make a bat. And I do have lots of yarn I need to, not yarn, I have lots of wool that I need to use up. So maybe I'll put together a bat or two. And because I need a couple more bags. I know I'm saying that as someone who has probably dozens of hand spun bags at this point. But that's not the point. The point is that I need a specialized couple of bags again, as I always do, because bags are really useful, but they're even more useful when they're specialized. And yeah, I feel the specialized bag urge calling my name. I'm actually making one right now for my wallet and my bus pass, but I need a couple more. So maybe I'll try and put together some nice durable like bats for that. See what we can do. That would be fun. Especially with bags, it can be a lot more colorful than I necessarily want in other things. Like, I don't like wearing colorful clothes, but I do like having colorful bags, and I really like making colorful bags. So it sort of opens up a different palette. For me, anyway. I'm sure that's not the case for everybody. Also, I just really like making bags. My coworker who's seen me make probably about 10 bags at work at this point. And we've only been coworkers for less than a year. So she's seen me make like 10 bags over less than a year at work when I was very much also doing other things. She came over to my apartment to do shrooms, which didn't quite end up working out because the shrooms were not as potent as we wanted. But anyway, she comes in, she's like looking around, complimenting my plants and stuff. And then she sees the giant wall of bags, and she's like, "Oh, interesting." And I'm like, it's not interesting. It's actually really normal and banal, and there's nothing interesting or odd about it at all." And she's like, "Okay, sure." But I think now she thinks that I really like bags, like I'm obsessed with them or something. And I don't think that's true, but I do. They're really interesting. You can hold a lot of things, and I do appreciate that. So maybe I am a little bit obsessed with bags, but in a way that nobody else seems to be able to relate to. Like, there's certainly other people who are obsessed with bags, but with bags that they aren't making, like like purses and designer bags or backpacks, things like that. I'm just obsessed with making them, but it's really fun though. That's where they go. Yeah, that's accurate, honestly. Recently, you spun yarn from wool you dyed, and it was a pain to spin. It ended up being thick and thin, almost like one of your first yarns, but you still finished it and basked in the fact that you made that. I get that. I've definitely done that sort of thing. It's interesting how dyeing the fiber can make it so much harder to work with rather than dyeing the yarn. Like, not always. And if you get lucky with a oh, I'm kind of surprised that didn't happen sooner. Totally jumped the hook, but that's okay. It's fixable. What was I saying? What was I saying? Oh yeah, when you dye it, it can like really change the draftability, among other things, and just like sort of everything about the fiber, to the point that it can become really hard to spin, as I noted with this cotton. Like, it was so much harder to spin. I don't know if it was damaging it, but God, it was a pain. I don't usually come across that with wool personally, but I think that's just because I've sort of gotten over the learning curve there already. I spent a lot of time doing it in the past, and so I've nailed that part down. But I really wasn't expecting it to happen again with cotton. I thought I was done, but no, not quite. Break, hang on. But either way, working with yarn that or with fiber that you dyed is so enjoyable. I know what you mean. Oh, hi, Ciaro. Welcome in. It's been a little while. Bags as a device are so underrated, like pockets. Agreed. I mean, they are pockets. They're just not attached to your clothes, which is what makes them so awesome because you can actually, like, you know, carry around things long term in them, whereas you can't in your pockets because it's going to come out when you take off the clothes. So, yeah, bags, I would say, maybe even better than pockets, in my humble opinion. I also can't use pockets though as a wheelchair user. That, like, you have to have specially designed pockets so it doesn't come flying out when you get going. So I might just be saying that because I literally can't use pockets. But nonetheless, I did have that bag obsession long before I became a wheelchair user. So it's just gotten worse. It's the only thing. Easier to lose though. I mean, I don't know. I lose my clothes pretty easily. I have multiple articles of clothing that I've been looking for a while now. And I mean, I do lose my bags too, but I think, at least for me, they're all similarly easy to lose. But I'm very talented and skilled at losing things. I would say it's one of my greatest accomplishments is like losing everything all the time. So it takes a lot of effort to lose something in the span of half a second that is massive and brightly colored, and I do that all day long. So we're almost done with this one too. I'm not going to jam pack any of the bobbins because I just don't. Oh, come on. Again? Well, I don't see the point in it, and also this will probably happen repeatedly. God, I just fixed it. We might end this bobbin here, potentially, because it clearly does not want to cooperate anymore. I don't know why, but there's a lot more space, though. I do want them to be the same size if I can, so that the stripes are the same color. Or no, stripes are the same length. Wouldn't really be the same color and be stripes, would they? Okay. Okay, now will you behave? Oh, probably not, because they did that upside down. This probably looks like somebody who has never done this before, which is really funny because I do it all the time because this happens so much. But nonetheless, here we are. Like, it doesn't happen if I get lucky, but then I don't usually get lucky when it comes to not making silly mistakes like turning that hook all the way over out of curiosity to see what would happen. I now know that's what happens. If I angle the hook this way, it just flies off the end. That makes sense and noted, and I will not do that again. Okay. Maybe I'll just be really careful adding the last extra bit of twist here, and then we'll move. Once I fill this up, we'll move to the other hooks. So I don't want it to jump the hook again, but I also don't want to stop the bobbin here due to that stripe length thing. So I'm just gonna do this really slowly. Bear with me. You lose bags all the time, you rarely lose pockets. Once you lost your plate in an extremely tiny college room in the middle of eating. Oh, that is impressive, actually. I don't think I've ever lost a plate of food while in the middle of eating it. Hats off to you, honestly. You're very gifted, yeah. It's always good to learn firsthand about why you do things a certain way. That's true. And to be fair, I don't think I've ever seen anybody say, have the hooks straight. I just see the hooks be straight. And then I'm like, it's Pride Month. They shouldn't be straight. That's actually kind of homophobic. And I try and move them and it doesn't work out. That's okay. I think the worst is that like I seem to misplace things in really insane spots where I'll never ever think to look there because it's like, why the fuck would I ever put my shoes in the refrigerator? That doesn't even make sense. Like literally makes no sense about any part of my thought process that my shoes would go in the refrigerator. But have I found my shoes in the refrigerator? Yes, multiple times now. So my problem is mostly like I will put it in insane places that I won't look through. But I do also sometimes walk into a room holding something, blink, and it's gone, and I tear the whole room apart, looking for it, and I never ever find it again. That's happened multiple times, actually. Like recently, it's happened multiple times. In my life, it's happened probably 100 times. I think it's probably the ADHD. It's that, or it's a curse of some kind, but it's probably the ADHD. You only tend to lose stuff when you're concentrating. You will just drop tools when you're done using them. Oh, that's definitely relatable as well. I'm always like if I'm knitting with DPNs, I have to have a spot where I'm putting the DPNs. Like if I'm casting off, for example, or otherwise not using all of them at a given time, because otherwise I'll literally just like throw it behind me without thinking about it, and then I don't like a year later. So I have that problem too, for sure. I bet it must be nice being an astronaut where like you can just literally drop your tool in midair and it will float it'll float there or somewhere near there for a while until you bump into it. And then I guess probably it causes other problems, but I don't know. Maybe I'd lose less things if I was an astronaut. That's my problem is I'm stuck on Earth with gravity. If I was an astronaut in space, I would actually be so functional. You have no idea how functional I'd be if I was just an astronaut in space. I don't think they allow wheelchairs on the ISS though, for some insane reason. Can't imagine why. I'm currently trying to pack as much as I possibly can onto all of the hooks other than the ones at the ends, because I don't want to repeat of the last like 10 minutes, but I do want to get more onto this bobbin so that it's more even. Problem is, I did the other ones, like I went all the way to the ends and I had no problem. Um, so I might overshoot this, but not realize. But that is okay. It doesn't have to be exact. I just want it to be close. Wow, by the way. Look at this disparity. This is gonna be kind of annoying. That was not a successful um, division. I guess we can call it that. Not at all. So that's a little bit too bad. That means there's going to be a large amount of chain flying, I think. I'm curious how much, though. And also, I mean, this does give me the opportunity to see exactly what the difference will be, because I can, dye the chain cloud scheme a specific color and keep track of it and see how it wears over time. So that could be interesting. Oh, wow, I'm so behind on chat. Sorry. You work well with having an average area with the stuff in it. Your studio is a mess lately, though, so stuff moves to another area by themselves. Definitely get that. You've seen the videos, they do have a procedure to get it to stay nearby. You don't think you'd do that. Interesting. I guess that makes sense. Like you wouldn't want it to be spinning and you'd have to let go of it in a way that doesn't leave it with any sort of momentum, which does sound kind of hard now that I think about it. So that's a fair point. What they would roll on. Well, wonder if someone tested how wheelchairs behave in space. Yeah, I guess they kind of wouldn't roll because they wouldn't be on the ground. So yeah, that's a fair point. They would not work in space if they're manual chairs. However, I feel like with magnets, and actually maybe even with manual chairs, with magnets, you could make it so that like the wheels are magnetic to the floor. And so that way they would stay, and then they would roll on the floor. So I could see it being possible, but you would obviously have to modify the wheelchair and the floor, probably pretty significantly. By the way, breaking news. I have to adjust the camera a little bit because there's a baby right there in the chair snoozing very peacefully. Oh, her little face. I might have to leave it like that, just so that you guys face. I might have to leave it like that, just so that you guys can watch Chuck and make sure she doesn't get up to anything. She's quite wily. They tested spiders and stuff. They could try that. I guess, like, you could also come up with a sort of spider wheelchair design where you simply have the legs walk. That could be interesting as well. Two almost similar bobbins. That is a very gracious way to put it. Yeah. I might want a completely different thing. Well, yes, that's certainly true. I mean, ideally, I wouldn't have a wheelchair at all. And if I was in space, I actually don't know if I need one because, like, I wouldn't ever be supporting my own body weight. And you kind of just pull yourself along on the handrails, right? From what I've seen. And I feel like that can't take that much upper body strength to do. Because, like, I could pull myself along in water really very easily. Like, if you're fully submerged, and that's weightless. Like, that's a weightless environment. So I might not even need a wheelchair. But I would need a wheelchair to get to the launch pad, and they would notice then. They'd notice something was up. Oh, Chuck. She's so baby, it's incredible. Some people would need some kind of mobility aid. You think a lot of people wouldn't? Yeah, indeed. I wonder actually, like, whether or not I'd need one, or also, I wonder what a space mobility aid would be like if we were to issue wheels, which does make sense. Like, that would be pretty reasonable. I wonder what we'd get instead. I think the spider leg thing is entirely plausible. Cursed, but plausible. All right, here is Bobbin 2. We're gonna see how much is on here. Hopefully a similar amount, and then it looks like we're just gonna get one more bobbin, and probably not even a full bobbin, unfortunately. Judging by what I'm looking at, I think all of that would fit on less than a bobbin, but we'll see. But that is too bad. I was clearly way too optimistic in hoping that this would be half of the yarn I needed. I think we're going to be lucky if it's a third of the yarn. Probably going to be more like a quarter, unfortunately. Which is really, it's not what I was hoping for, but I guess I could always do a smaller blanket. I'm not gonna though, because a smaller blanket would probably be kind of annoying. Like, I like the size of my other ones. I actually wanted to go bigger for this one though. So I definitely don't want to go smaller, as that we'd run into functionality issues. Like when your blanket is too small to cover like your feet and then also all the way up to your shoulders, it's kind of not a good blanket in my personal opinion. System of harnesses, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I guess you could have like pulleys and zip lines and such, or not zip lines, but like lines where you have a harness and then there's a line connected to it, and then it can kind of just wheel you into a location, and then once you're at that location, like say it reels you from your bedroom to the corridor, and then when you're in the corridor, you can choose which next hook to put on and whether to go left or right down the corridor or whatever like that. Like, you could get some interesting systems like that. That'd be really be a really cool sci-fi detail. if I wrote sci-fi, I would definitely put that in there. You've missed this stream? Oh, thank you. I've missed streaming. I was thinking about it the whole time I wasn't streaming. I just, like, I couldn't because of health issues, but I missed it too. And I'm very glad to know that you all also missed it. Makes me feel nice. Thank you. I feel like this one has more yardage. And I have no idea why. But I don't want to, count my chucks before they sleep or whatever the saying is. So, but it's certainly taking a hell of a lot longer to wind onto the knitting outie than the other one did. Maybe this is thinner yarn, and also maybe I had higher tension, because I definitely had fairly high tension, and I think I didn't on the first one for whatever reason. So it'd be nice if we could recoup some extra yardage on this scheme, but I know we're going to lose on the other one. She's sleeping with her eyes open again. It's so creepy when she does that. She's done it since she was a kitten. My sister theorizes that it's because her eyes are too big to easily close all the way, which I think is correct, unfortunately. She can close her eyes, she just doesn't when sleeping very often, which is quite unnerving and a little bit gross looking, although thankfully I don't think you can tell. Kind of just see her little face, and that's about it. You rarely know why one has more yardage. Oh, for real. Me neither. I'm always like, wow, this has double the yardage, even though they looked identical. Probably due to a number of factors, and I leave it at that. I'm always counting my chucks to make sure I just have one. If you start counting your chucks and you get to 2, that's not a good, that's a bad. That's worrying. That's like some sort of demonic chuck impersonator situation that you do not want to be in. Now tell me right now. There was actually, now that I think about it, there was what we called the chuck impersonator, which was a very similar looking, big, very fat cat with like almost identical colors. Not the same markings, but the colors were quite similar. And it must have belonged to one of the neighbors that somewhere I lived in another state quite some time ago. So it would only come over like sometimes. But it was so friendly, and my eyesight is not great. And also, like, sometimes I was really drunk and I wouldn't realize that I was letting in a cat that was not my cat, but rather a very, very similar looking cat. And then I would wake up and I would find Chuck, and then I'd be like, oh, wow, Chuck, and I'd be petting her. And then I'd look over and I'd find Chuck again. And then I'd, be like, oh, oh, I see, 2 Chucks. And I was always really worried that I wouldn't know which one was the real Chuck, and I just have to keep both cats forever. Which, I mean, 1 Chuck is already a handful, let me tell you. So I'm glad that I could always tell her apart. It's because she's got this weird marking on her back, like a check mark, and the other cat didn't have it. But anyway, yeah, it's entirely possible to have 2 Chucks, and it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Someone who once slept with their eyes open, you don't know how their eyes didn't dry out. I know, right? Like, I guess with cats, they probably have some different kind of mucus in their eyes that makes it not dry out than what humans do. And they have the inner eyelid as well. Mucus in their eyes that makes it not dry out than what humans do. And they have the inner eyelid as well. And a lot of the times she'll sleep with the inner eyelid closed and the outer eyelid open, which probably protects her eyes completely from drying out. But with humans, like, what is wrong with you? Ugh, I don't like the idea. It creeps me out a little bit too. Then you have to figure out which one is the imposter. Exactly. Heard so many stories of realizing that the cat in your house is not your cat. Yeah, I guess cats often can look quite similar to each other. Oh, right. Okay, we're gonna count this again. So the last one was 96 total or 98 total. No, it was 96. We got 48 strands. So we're gonna count this one too and see what we're at. That's 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60. Okay, so 120 this time. So that's nice. That's a little more. So I think we will probably end up with 350 yards is my guess, not counting shrinkage, because we can't count shrinkage. So, oh, that's so annoying. These are different lengths. I guess because I must have put different amounts of tension on them. But look at all the cotton we've spun and plied. Well, carded and spun and plied. I wonder if I can. I mean, again, the potato camera issue. But I'm so happy with it. We're gonna scour it tonight, if nothing else, and get it done so that I can see exactly how thick it ends up being. But yeah, that's 2 skeins down. I can't tell if she's staring at me or not, or if she's asleep. It's the classic Chuck problem. Looks good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy with it. It's really soft, and yeah, it's more even than I thought. Definitely the second skein is a little bit thinner. Which, I mean, I'm such an inconsistent spinner, even when I'm not spinning cotton, that doesn't shock me at all. So the fact that I got that with cotton I'm happy with it for sure. Okay, I think we'll be able to finish up the last one. I wasn't sure if I would feel up to it, but I think so. Also, I'd probably wake up in the middle of the night and finish it if I didn't do it on stream. So this is sort of the lesser of two evils doing it now. Okay. Yeah, I often, since that incident, or not incident, but series of incidents while I lived in that place, I often find myself like double checking. Like, are we sure it's Chuck? Could be someone else. I'm pretty sure this one's Chuck though, because the eyes open thing. I don't know any other cats whose eyes are so big that they sleep with their eyes open all the time. She's such a little weirdo. I love her so much. All right. Final scheme. So I think as soon as we're done, like as soon as we don't have 3 plies anymore, we might just switch to chain plying. Just because it's going to be faster than constantly juggling and Rewinding. I hate rewinding. I'm not going to do any of that. Oh, come on. Does not want to cooperate. Hang on. Did that on the last one too. It's so annoying. The slip knot like tangles up because of the twist in it, and then I can't actually undo it. I just have to break it. Which, now that I think about it, that is not a problem that I have ever had with wool. Or if I have had it, it was just like a one-off and not a problem that I remember having. And I usually work with wool that hasn't been rested either. Like, my preferred way of spinning and the way that I usually spin is I'll spin it and then ply it in a day. And if I'm doing a big project, I'll spin a day's worth and ply a day's worth. And that's it. I don't usually do big batches quite like this. So the fact that cotton, even though it's been rested for quite some time, still does that is interesting. I wonder if resting cotton doesn't do what resting wool does. Like, maybe it needs to be washed to reset the fibers, whereas wool fibers will relax on their own. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I don't like, cotton is such a mystery still that it wouldn't shock me if it behaves totally contrary to wool in this particular way as well. I've been almost considering whether it's worth trying to cross lace. I don't ever cross lace. I know about it because I've watched a lot of lace spinning videos from my local library, but I haven't actually done it because I don't spin lace on my wheel. I spin it supported, and yeah, so I don't really know much about it, but I do know that it can help guide the yarn better even when you're not using high tension. And I am avoiding using high tension because it makes it harder to treadle. So that might help. I'd have to look up how to do it. And I don't want to pause the stream for that. But I might try that on the next one. The next time I do some plying. See if it makes any sort of a difference. I'm not sure if it will or if it won't. Typically, you don't cross lace with anything other than wool. At least as far as I know. But I think it could be worth trying because this whole unwinding thing, like the fact that it jumps all of the hooks before the guide run is a little bit annoying, and it definitely causes some lack or some loss in energy transfer. You know, the energy of me treadling to it going onto the bobbin, you're losing some there just due to it flying in the air. Because it's not actually on the hooks anymore. So I'm curious to see if that can be improved on, you know? Hard to say. That would be interesting. No, right? There have been times when I considered cross-lacing and then didn't do it because I would have to look it up. So hopefully actually doing it will cement in my brain how to do it, and then maybe I'll use it a little bit more often. But I remember considering it when I was spinning that linen blanket too, because it also jumped the hook like absolute crazy. And cross-lacing probably would have fixed it, but I just never did. Even though I agonized over like every single skein I spun. And I spun so many because they were all so small. It was like every single one was agonizing, both mentally because none of it went correctly, and also physically because it was wet linen, and linen is already quite heavy, and when you add water to it, it's even more heavy, and it just was really hard to travel. So even though all of that was the case, I still did nothing to better my situation, as is often the case with me. I'm very good at that. I'm stopping to pull out all the pokies that I find, which is probably a waste of time because there's so many pokies that I'm not finding, but nonetheless. Oh, Chuck. What are you looking at now? I'm always worried she's looking at some massive bug because she's usually staring off into the distance directly behind me. And sometimes her eyes will track things, and I still have no idea what the hell they track. If it's bugs, they're not bugs I can see. But nonetheless, every single time her eyes are tracking something behind me, I'm like, oh my god, world's biggest spider right behind me. I just know it, and then I turn around and there's nothing. She'd be like the world's worst guard dog because she'd just lie constantly. She'd be like, oh my god, it's right there. And then I'd turn around and there'd be nothing. And I'd turn ahead again and she'd be like crawling into my lap. She's not allowed to sit in my lap, so that's why. But she's always trying to get in my lap. And I think she purposefully distracts me so that she can try and sit in my lap while I'm distracted. But the problem is she is so heavy. She weighs about 25, 30 pounds. Very, very heavy. And my hips dislocate so easily. She cannot sit in my lap because I'll dislocate my hips like immediately, which is not something she cares about at all. She's like, I used to be able to sit in your lap when I was a kitten, and it is discrimination and probably a hate crime of some sort that I'm not allowed to sit in your lap now. That's pretty clearly her thoughts on the matter. Okay, I did say that we were going to switch to chain flying as soon as we only had 2 left, but since this one, it just has 1 bump, I think I'm just gonna wind that into a really quick ply bracelet. Just because I think that's actually going to reduce the amount of work that I do. Sorry about that. She's the card that always lies. Yeah, that's accurate, actually. She is a very deceitful cat. I think, like, on some level, many cats are pretty deceitful. Like my sister's cat certainly sounds the alarm bell over nothing constantly. And lies about how much food she's had, to the fact that she's starving and unloved and probably about to keel over from lack of food. Yeah, she lies a ton too. But Chuck is just nothing but lies from this guy. Like, I love her, but oh my gosh. You cannot take a Chuck at their word, let me tell you. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was definitely easier than trying to deal with it later, I think. They're usually bad at it, though. They don't understand the things they need to conceal. Accurate, yeah. Like, they know they want to conceal something, they just don't know what that thing is. This is largely unrelated, but delightful to me anyway. But so I started getting these fish fillets, like grilled fish fillets, specifically for cats, not for humans. Just these packets of them at the grocery store because it's like a discount grocery store basically that just sells things that are on sale. Or no, it sells things that it bought super cheap from other stores, and then sells them a steep discount. So it is sort of like only buying things that are on sale if you were to aggregate all of the stuff on sale in all the local stores and put it there. But what it means is that it has a constantly rotating stock of inventory, because what is easy to buy always changes, right? So I was buying Chuck churros, which are like just these tubes of meat paste, and she really loves them. And they ran out, and they haven't had more, so I switched to buying these fish fillets for her, which she likes. I don't think she likes them as much as the churros, to be honest, because I have to give her the churros, whereas I can just give her a fish fillet and walk away. And I think she feels like she's being cheated somehow. Like she definitely wants me to hang out with her while I eat. It's just I don't always do that. But I decided I was very curious to see what my sister's cat would make of them, because my sister's cat is a little food fiend, and we frequently joke to each other about how she has simple demands such as one large fish raw and triggling. And my sister was pretty sure that she wouldn't know what to do with a fish, raw and trickling or not. And I thought that, she totally would. She ate so many birds when we didn't know better and allowed her to do that. So I gave my sister a couple of fish fillets for her cat just to see what she thought. And it turns out that what she does is she picks up the whole fish fillet in her mouth. Keep in mind that this is like 2 times the size of her head, and then does what birds do, tosses her head back and just sort of horks it down. And it's really, really funny to watch. Absolute sight to behold. This cat is ancient and very tiny and very angry and very cute, but mostly angry and small. And watching her do that with the fish fillet that's twice the size of her head is just so fucking funny. It's so beautiful. I wish Chuck did that too. But alas, she doesn't work very much. Not much of a worker. Oh wow, this is so thin. That's not really what I wanted. Well, I mean, I'm probably just going to go ahead with it anyway, because this is all going to be knit up on needles that are way too big comparatively, so I don't think. It's starting the piece. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but I don't like how thin this is. That's not what I wanted. That's okay though. Oh, I see. You guys had warning, huh? That she was leaving, but I was too engrossed in my story to even notice. Yeah, now she's going and whacking bags because she wants her fish. I actually didn't give it to her yet this afternoon. That probably is what she's actually campaigning for at the moment. Yeah, it is hilarious. It's absolutely beautiful. Rue is such a goblin. Rue is the name of my sister's cat. She's such a little goblin. I love her so much, and I also raised her. Me and my sister both raised her from a kitten, and I love her so much. But she's so. She takes herself so seriously, but it is impossible as a human to take her seriously, even a little bit. Oh, I got back in the box now. What you can't see is that I have half a dozen cardboard boxes strewn around my apartment, because she has to have pick of many boxes all the time. She has to have multiple boxes that she can jump between, because she'll get distracted campaigning for something and instead just sit in the box. And so the more boxes I have, the less annoying she is. So yeah, a lot of the floor space taken up by boxes. The good news is that this has gotten way thicker. So I guess it was just a thin spot right there, which is totally fine. I don't mind one thin spot. I didn't want the whole rest of it to be really thin. I thought it was possible that this whole ply, like everything left on the bottom, was much thinner. I don't think it is though. If it is, the whole ply, like everything left on the bottom, is much thinner. I don't think it is though. If it is, it's only a little bit thinner. So that is good. I was a bit relieved. I could hold that part double. Yeah, I could. I might just pull it out entirely when I get to it in the knitting. But there's so little of it. I think we're fine. If it lasted a long time, that's when I get a little bit sad. Ugh, too much debris in here. Come on. Okay. But I don't think this is going to fill up the whole bobbin. It'll probably come decently close, though. The reason why I like going from, like when I end up with just two bobbins out of a 3 bobbin set with stuff still on them, the reason that I like doing first a self ply held alongside the longest strand and then just do a ply after that, it's because when you reach the end of the self ply, you have a loop and you can really easily and seamlessly just start chain plying off of that with your one remaining strand. And otherwise, you have to, if it's wool, you have to felt them together. And if it's not a feltable thing like wool, then you actually can't really get a seamless transition. Because most of the tricks for attaching cotton or linen back together don't work once it's already been spun. They only work on unspun fiber, at least as far as I can tell. So I'm glad that we ended up with like the perfect amount left, that it seemed reasonable to do that. Because I was willing to not have a seamless transition if we ended up with like half and half, or well, not half and half, but I don't know, just a large amount of both left. That would just be kind of a pain to wind that into a ply bracelet and do. But ending up with just one bump is kind of perfect enough to do that on. You were wondering how I switched to chain ply, you didn't notice? Yeah, it is, as I said, very seamless and very, very easy too. Definitely give it a shot if you're ever in that situation. It's a niche situation to be in, but it's also the niche hobby, so I find myself in all sorts of strange situations spinning. I have to switch legs finally. It's nice to know that my knees have healed, and at least enough to easily treadle. My ability to walk is like way worse than it was even a month ago, so it's not um, it's not letting me walk easier, but it is letting me spin easier. And if I'm being fully honest, I would prefer to be able to spin easier than walk easier. Because they do already have a wheelchair, so that ship has kind of sailed either way. But the spinning ship has not sailed yet. So I'm glad that that is working. I just wish that these fucking pressure injuries would leave me alone now. I finally had an idea about that, about helping to prevent them more by unfortunately buying spandex like leggings, because one of the things that's been causing them is wrinkles in my clothes, which is so annoying and also not something that's easy to get rid of when you typically wear somewhat loose baggy pants. Like I'm a sweatpants kind of guy at the moment, but that is not going well. So unfortunately, I have to buy some spandex tights which I don't think I'll enjoy wearing, but if they help with the pressure injuries, then worth it, entirely worth it. I'm curious what they will feel like because I haven't worn non-natural material clothes in so long. Out of choice. I don't like polyester or spandex or any of that stuff. But I finally found a use for it, I guess. But yeah, it arrives tomorrow, so it's possible that I will get to reap the benefits of that pretty quickly. We'll see. I'm very hopeful that I will. Because at the moment, I'm like, I can tell that I'm making the pressure injuries worse. Just sitting in my wheelchair at work. Even though my cushion is fine, it's just because I'm sitting on a wheelchair or a seam. I thought I changed hook already. I could have sworn. We're almost out of this, so yeah, this is going to be like a half bobbin. Just a little bit too bad, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. Oh, well, there's that. Pulled right off the bobbin. I actually wasn't expecting that at all. Okay. Just gotta do a little bit of finagling, but the way I want it to be. Well, it's not the way I want it to be, but it could be worse. So at least there's that. You recently learned how to do the Plying bracelet. Oh, nice. I find them so, I don't know if stimmy is the right word, but satisfying anyway. So I hope you enjoy them because I really do. I always like self-plying. It's just like, it's a pain, literally and figuratively, but it's also really satisfying. So still can't manage it. It definitely, it's a muscle memory thing, you know? Like once you get it, you're good. But until you get it, it's got a pretty steep learning curve for sure. Definitely worth it as a disabled person. I just have to get okay with using plastic sometimes. Yeah, I know. I already had to change basically all of my not cooking materials, but like eating materials, I guess, to plastic because they're a lot lighter, and I actually cannot hold like a ceramic plate anymore without almost certainly dropping it. So I've gotten used to it. It's a texture thing and also a temperature regulation thing that has prevented me from looking into plastic clothes. And until now, I also didn't have a reason. But yeah, I have to get okay with the plastic clothes, I think, because at least if this works, I'll have to. If it doesn't work, I won't have to. But also, I would like it to work because I have no other ideas. But yeah, you're right. It's not gonna look good. That's one thing I'm very aware of. I have a feeling that I'm gonna be wearing my coat on my lap for a really long time, just so that nobody can see my leggings. Because like if I put on something else over that, it 100% defeats the purpose of the leggings. So I have to just wear the leggings, and I'm not a skin tight clothes kind of guy. So yeah, I don't really know what to do about that. Like in the winter, I'll just have a blanket over my lap. That's a lot more normal, I think. But in the summer, probably just gonna have a jacket on my lap 100% of the time when I'm in public, which is fine. It's easier to hold things in your lap if you've got like a sort of bowl surface, like having a piece of fabric draped over your lap will do. Whereas if it's just your legs, you have to either hold your legs together to keep the item in your lap or hold it in place in your lap with your hands. And I don't enjoy either of those. So it'll probably have other benefits that I'm not even thinking of yet. Hopefully. We'll see. You can't stand polyester. Yeah, me neither. I didn't understand, like, my mom was super anti polyester, and I think it's probably just because of her job and who she is as a person. Um, when I was a kid, and so I just never wore it. And then as an adult, like I got a couple of polyester shirts, just like not thinking about it. Or I guess not as an adult, but as a teenager who was finally getting my own clothes. And I realized very quickly that I did not at all enjoy what was going on. Not at all. But yeah, I think it'll be worth it. I could crochet a blanket for my lap. It's true. The thing is, I don't want a blanket. Like, I want something warm. And I have some jackets that are not warm. But I guess I could make a cotton blanket for my lap. Now that you mention it, I am literally making a cooling fabric or cooling gown right now. So that's actually not a very good excuse. I will not be using this to make a lap blanket though. This is summer blanket yarn, so I'd have to spin something else or maybe use linen. I guess I could probably make a pretty nice lap blanket with linen. I wouldn't want it to have big holes like a summer blanket does, because then you'd still be able to see everything. And like specifically, I don't use a packer, and I, as you can imagine, do not have a dick. So it makes it a little bit awkward when there's like just, nothing in my pants. And I don't want other people to be able to see that in this political climate. So I definitely have to have something there, like something over my lap, specifically for that reason. But I guess I could make like a nice linen blanket, and it wouldn't be too warm if it was solid stock, and just because linen is never warm. So I think you've got an idea there. If I make it, I can control the weight. It's true, yeah. That probably is the thing to do. That might be my next interlude-ish project. Because I do have some linen remaining, I think. I have to find it, but I'm pretty sure I have it. Or not linen. I think it's flax if it hasn't been spun yet. I know it's a personal opinion, to be honest, because there's so many different ways you can classify it as, or like points at which you can start classifying it as linen. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna count this now. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. Okay. Do a little bit of math. So that's 56 plus 96 and 52, I think. And then there's 112 after that. So we're at just under like 275 yards, and probably once it's been washed and has shrunken, it'll probably be more like 250 yards. So yeah, that is a quarter of the way for this blanket. I was hoping it would be half the way done, but that's okay. I am really happy with these yarns. Let's get them all together again. So I'm not. Oh, hi, Chuck. What is it? She doesn't even know. She's like, I was just making noise, dude. I don't know. Anyway, I have those Rolags that I prepared earlier to spin as the wool interlude, but I think we're gonna wait until I can lay in bed on my back again. And I'm gonna blend up some fiber to make bags out of if they need more bags. So, but yeah, look at all this. I can't believe it's only 275 yards. That's kind of crazy. I thought we would get a hell of a lot more out of this, but I'm still happy with it. I think it's a lot better quality than I expected it to be. Let's see if we can get anything at all. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy. Yeah, I'm sure I can figure out um, a good lap blanket. I don't have the linen currently, but yeah, I could certainly spin some and see. Chuck, that's rocks, dude. She's trying to get the rocks now because she thinks it's food. Anyway, that's probably a sign that I should call it because she's gonna start causing problems very soon. It looks good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy with it. So I'm gonna get all this stuff scouring before I go to bed and probably try and either blend up some stuff or maybe just Chuck, what are you doing? Get off there. Okay, she's sticking her head into the old box of fish um, that I discarded. So I have a feeling that this is indeed about the fish. Yeah, I know. Soon, Chuck. I okay. Now you're just causing problems for fun. She's back. She's always back. She's back, and this time it's personal. It's always personal. All right, I should probably go. Hopefully, another stream tomorrow. Probably going to be the same time as always because it's like the only time frame that I can do. So, um, yeah, good time to drop by if either of you are free tomorrow, or at least to check my Tumblr if you end up wanting to watch a stream. It's a good time to do so. I'm so happy with these. I'm really curious how they'll look once they're washed too, because washing does have, and especially scouring, does have a pretty big effect on the yarn. So yeah, I'm very excited. Thanks for hanging out, manifesting. Yeah, are you manifesting fish for Chuck, or are you manifesting spinning stream for us tomorrow? Either way, Chuck, what now? Either way, I should go before she destroys my entire apartment because that is on the table, as always. She loves to destroy things. Thanks for the stream. It was fun. Yeah, thank you for hanging out. This is always so much more enjoyable than if I were to just sit and spin by myself. Like that's enjoyable too, but this is like super enjoyable. So thank you for hanging out. I really loved it. Made all this yarn. Um, Chuck didn't enjoy it, but sometimes you have to do hard things, Chuck. Chuck would have preferred if I had laid in bed and pet her. But nonetheless, here we are. So I'll catch you next time. Um, it's so nice to see them done after all the experimenting. I know, right? I'll definitely take a picture as soon as it's picturable and post it on Tumblr for sure. I hope you all have a good night and thank you for hanging out on stream. It was really fun as always. It was about Chuck, but I had a feeling. Okay, Chuck. All right. Have a good night. Catch you next time. Thanks for watching.